to Laurie-Ann, I had a huge task ahead of me. I had to write and deliver my TEDx talk. I am Trupti Karshani, artist and a creative coach. It was really hard for me to distill my story and give a TEDx talk around how art helped me cure my perfectionism permanently. That's how I arrived at Laurie-Ann's doorstep. So Laurie-Ann actually came highly recommended to me by my business coach and a few other business friends that I have. I have to say that their recommendation was absolutely right because within the first meeting, she got me completely relaxed around my TEDx talk and got me to start writing my TEDx talk. She looked through my draft and gave me really important feedback points that helped me polish my TEDx talk. So this was important for me to have Laurie-Ann as a coach to work with because it really helped me to have a soundboard to discuss my ideas and to get feedback. It's now on YouTube, and I really enjoyed the time that I worked with Laurie-Ann.
If you've been jumping from strategy to strategy, looking for the perfect thing, my guest today has the answer, and it's almost too simple. Amanda Walker is all about framework and how having a framework can show prospects how you get them from point A to point B, and having that visual is like magic. Let's get on to the show. Are you a coach, consultant, or service provider who's frustrated with the growth of your business? You're in the right place. I'm your host, Laurie-Ann Murabito, and you're listening to Be in Demand, where I talk about how to leverage speaking opportunities to grow your business, get positioned as the expert, and monetize your expertise. Let's get on to the show. Amanda, thank you so much for joining me today. This is going to be such a treat because I was in your audience once upon a time with our friend Adam Shibley, and now I get to bring you into my world and share you with my audience.
Yeah, full circle moment, right? I'm really
Yes.
excited to be here and serve your people and get to know you more too.
Thank you. So my audience knows that I'm fascinated by people's pathway, their journey to getting here. And I know that you started off as a teacher and now you are the best damn coach. So can you just give us the cliff notes of this journey, how you got here?
Yeah, I mean, it starts way back before then. My first job ever was when I was 15 and I was a coach. I was a high school or a five like basketball coach for 5 and 6 year olds. I would later become a high school basketball coach too, but um and that was a lot like herding cats. And it was also when I kind of realized like the power and the feeling of what it looks like to help another human being have transformation. And at that time it was just me using frameworks to help them teach, shoot better. But it was really a domino that would lead to a lifetime full of coaching. And so I went on to undergrad and grad school, studying science really, and also became an educator and loved it. And it was great. I taught also group fitness, CrossFit. I've coached a lot of things. I've coached educators. So every cell in my body is like coaching. And then I had kids and game changer. It was like, whoa, I thought that this whole like teaching schedule was going to be exactly what would allow me to be accessible to them. And I realized I'd never be able to pick them up or take them home from school because I'd be in the classroom. And I realized that, my husband was on the PD. And so on the SWAT team, we were ships passing in the night. And so I knew that there needed to be a shift. So we decided to take a big old leap. I left my job, had no plan, and then totally stumbled into entrepreneurship and had my own health and kind of fitness journey that's always been a passion for me. And so I built my first business in the health and nutrition space. And I loved that. It was fun. I learned so much and it grew really rapidly. And so I started having coaches reach out like, hey, will you coach me? And I started seeing a lot of opportunity around this idea of just frameworks and processes to make coaches more confident. And so it was a few years ago, 3 years ago, that I sadly said goodbye to the health and fitness side of my business and went all in on coaching coaches. And so now I coach coaches to help them build out their signature frameworks and really utilize frameworks to help them stand out in their niche. And then I run a community called the Best Damn Coach, where we help coaches make more money and just be really freaking good at coaching.
I love this. I was listening to one of your recent podcast episodes where Adam was actually interviewing you, and I was like, her and I have so much in common. I
Oh,
have
that's
a
so
degree
cool.
in exercise physiology and have taught fitness And it's been such a passion of mine for years. Can't
Love that.
claim the basketball stuff, although I am 5'10", and
Okay,
I
you
would
got the
make a
height for it.
great, yeah, I would have made a great basketball player. But when I did try out in high school, this is like nobody's ever heard this. I'm wearing jeans at a tryout because I don't have the proper clothing, and nor do I know how to play the game. But I was like, I wanted to be on a team and
Yeah,
be a part of the sports part
that's
of
so
high
fun.
school.
That's so cool.
So let's just go right back to the framework because I think this is such an important conversation to be having with people. I think a lot of coaches are missing the mark by not having a framework. So, in your words, please tell everybody like why a framework matters.
Yeah, I mean, how much do we have? Time do we have? But I mean, to just put it simply, framework equals results. And so this is kind of where I have I want to put like a stake in the ground and stand from the mountain to scream is that the coaching industry is saturated. And there's a lot of what I would call fluffy coaches out there and coaches that aren't results driven. And the problem with that is it waters down the industry. And so our consumers or people that want to invest in their services aren't really sure. Wait, is this coach going to give me what they're promising? And so when you have a framework, it forces you in the creation process, the way I teach it, to reverse engineer your results so that you are absolutely guiding your clients through success every step of the way. And so that's why I mean, the first time, like I mentioned, when I was 15, my little boys had no idea how to shoot, and they also were 5. And so it was like, how am I going to teach them to actually figure out how to shoot? If I just talk at them, they're never going to remember it. So I came up with this cookie jar method, and I basically had them think about they were holding a cookie on a plate, and then they were reaching into a cookie jar, and they were dipping it in the milk, right? And so each cue was a specific movement to help them hone in on their form. And so the parents were like, "This is amazing." And when you're playing 5-year-old basketball, really it does boil down to like if they can get if your team can get one basket in, then you almost just might win the game. And so our team started crushing it, and I ended up having this kind of like parents that just wanted to be on my team, right? Because of the way I poured into the kids, the way I coached. And so I always like to say it allowed me to become the purple duck in a gym of other coaches. I was standing out, not because I was that awesome. I'd like to believe I was, but because I had a methodology that was creating success. And so that's what will happen for every single coach or expert or whoever you are in the industry is when you get results, more people are going to talk about how awesome you are. And organically, you have an increase in traffic and renewals, referrals, and retention inside of your business. So it's a win, 360 degrees in your business.
I love that. Thank you very much for sharing all of that. And I can just picture those little 5-year-olds with the cookie method and,
Yes,
and really
they're so cute.
understanding it.
Yes, for
That's
sure.
brilliant. So what are the common mistakes that you see coaches make when they are trying to come up with their framework? Because like looking at it from the outside, and I do have a framework, is they're so in their business that they don't even know how they actually do and help their clients get the results.
Yeah. I see 5 common mistakes, but I'll just hit on a couple. I think the first and most common is that people don't they cram too much in and they're trying to solve too many problems with one framework. So they're like, I only have this time, this 6-week, coaching container, this 12-week coaching container, and they want to go really wide instead of deep. And usually this is a greater symptom of not really having a specific problem that they're solving in their business. So they're really trying to solve a general problem like eat more healthy or let's say, get out of debt, which seem like specific problems. Yes, they are, but there's a lot more that it takes to solve that problem. And so I really encourage when I teach inside the lab, we got to get crystal clear on what that problem is. And when we know the specific problem we're solving, then it makes the framework just so much easier to build out. And then when your clients are successful at that goal, then you can always go level 2. Okay, now let's work on a new goal, specifically speaking to more one-to-one work. But I think a lot of coaches are afraid that they want to teach them all the things, and then it is extremely overwhelming. And in doing that, the client really misses out on a possibility of amazing results.
And you could have basically multiple frameworks.
Correct.
or like your one-on-one coaching, this program, that program. Is that fair to say? Are you ready to leverage speaking as your best form of marketing? There are over 7,500 events looking for speakers every single day. Speaking positions you as the expert in the room, but you probably don't know where to start. So I created this great resource called the Directory of Places to Speak. This resource will help you get started today. So head on over to speakandstandout.com/directory to grab your free copy now. Don't miss this opportunity to be the expert speaking to audiences filled with your ideal clients.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think to a point, when you're the other thing about frameworks, right, is it's scalable. Because eventually, let's hope, I got to this place in my business where I had no more capacity for one-to-one work. And so if I want to continue to make more money, then the only way is through group format, one to many, and whether that's group coaching, whether that's a course or a hybrid or something like that. And so it's very easy to hold somebody's hand through a one-to-one experience utilizing a framework. More challenging now is to coach 20 people at the same time. And so when we have a very clear step by step, then you're able to facilitate learning for 20 people simultaneously, and everybody's following the path. And I think that this is we're not thinking that way when we start business often because we don't know where it's going to take us. But you could easily, use that one-to-one framework. It could become, with a few tweaks, a group framework, but you might have multiple offers where you're solving different problems. And so different frameworks might come up, or you also have what I call micro or acute frameworks. These are the sub steps, maybe these like baby things that you teach inside that are more short term. So for me, this might be like what I call the best coaching session blueprint, which is the way I teach my coaches to facilitate a group, a one-to-one coaching session. It's used very short, but it's a part of a larger framework that I teach to help a coach grow their business and make money.
Oh, that was a brilliant answer. Now I feel smarter about frameworks.
Yes.
Um, so what's the first step that somebody could take in crafting their own framework?
So first step is a bit counterintuitive,
Mm-hmm.
but it is actually starting at the end. And when I was,
You are a woman after my own heart because that's exactly how I write speeches
yeah,
and
well, it's
teach
a
my
framework,
clients to write
right? It's
speeches.
a
Yes.
framework. It's a framework. I teach a framework on how to craft a webinar. I teach a framework on how to write a talk. Like all of it actually is woven. Once you come through the lab, my students will just say, everything's changed. Like I just see everything differently now because I'm starting with the end in mind. And so this came from me. This is so ingrained in my brain is obviously from teaching, but my second year of teaching, my students had test scores that really blew all my colleagues out of the water. And so one of my colleagues came and said, like, did you just give the kids the test? Did you let them study right from the test? I was offended. And also, what I could see was that my colleagues were just showing up each morning winging it. They were like, okay, what's next? Okay, I got to get there. Where I took the time and studied the end of semester exam. I knew exactly what I wanted them to master. And then I reverse engineered the small milestones, the unit tests. I built out quizzes to support the unit tests. I built out my lessons accordingly. And so we want to wrap that same mindset into coaching. This is where so many of us are afraid. We don't stand confidently behind our offers because we haven't taken the time to do this. And so we're like, crap, are they going to actually get the things that I promised? Well, I guarantee if you map it out from the end and reverse engineer and you ask yourself, but what do I tangibly want my client to have when they finish this coaching container? Then I'm able to figure out the baby steps in that process to guarantee that that result exists at the end.
Darn. I really like that.
Yeah, good.
And again, we have so much in common. I call it's Stephen Covey. It's like starting with the end, work and just
100%.
work your way back to the beginning.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
so good.
Wonderful. Now, the other thing that I see coaches struggling with, and like myself, just like you, when I left my corporate job, I mean, I had no business plan. I knew nothing about marketing and sales. And I worked in a hospital where, like I walked in every day and here's the 8 patients that I had to take care of that entire day. Like basically my clients came to me. So I never had to worry about that.
Yeah.
So when I started my entrepreneurial journey, I mean, This struggle with clients, how do you get them? And most importantly, like, because to keep the doors open, you have to have money coming in.
Mm,
It's something that I still see today in a lot of coaches.
yeah. I think it's the number one struggle I would have coaches coming to
Mhm.
me to talk about, like, how do I get clients consistently? And I think this is a complex question because there's definitely the strategy piece, which I definitely am happy to speak on. And also, there is this willingness to get out of your comfort zone and be uncomfortable and just start where you're at. And, I always joke, but my first clients, I charged $50 a month. I had no idea what I was doing. I was afraid to talk about money. I,
Mhm.
at the time, was doing nutrition coaching. It was all email based. I wasn't even seeing a client in person. I was randomly invoicing people on PayPal because I didn't have a system in place. And I'm so glad I did that because I just like met myself where I was at and I charged $50 and I learned quickly that wasn't sustainable and I bumped up to $200 a month and I felt like, very quickly I replaced my teaching salary, which isn't hard to do, but I was making $30,000, $40,000, in the second and third year and I'm so grateful that what my focus was always on, do I have a framework that gets results? And when I focused on that, people become your walking billboard. They are literally, especially in the beginning when I was doing health and fitness, their bodies were literally billboards for our success together as client and coach. And so I think a lot of people just miss that. They, grassroots, you got to go, you got to talk to people. Right now in my community, every August, we do a sales challenge and it's only on conversations. It's about getting out and tracking just how many conversations because people don't mind read you. They have no idea, even if you're making amazing content, that you actually coach. You have to talk to people about your services. You have to go, as we say in my community, go to where you are not known, whether that's pitching podcasts, whether that's going to networking events, whether that's speaking on stages, which is such a brilliant way to do it. All of those things are extremely valuable, but you've got to find a consistent way that matches your strengths and continue to get out there and be consistent, not just one and done. Don't host one webinar and it not meet your expectations and quit, which is really this resiliency piece I was mentioning. But that's really where I see a lot of coaches fall off is they do something once or twice and they want immediate gratification. And the reality is you got to keep putting in the work. People are watching you. And if you quit showing up, they're not going to show up for you.
100%. I blame McDonald's and the drive-through for
Amazon.
that instant gratification. But yes, yes, now it's Amazon. And by the way, I charged when I first started $25 a
There
session.
you go. Yep. Yep. Start where you can start, right?
Yeah. So here's what I'm hearing is that, okay, as a coach, you have a framework for how you help your clients get from point A to point B. But I'm also hearing that as a coach trying to build a business, I should have like this framework that I could be following.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, uh, my bias opinion is that errors that also are happening in the industry is there's a lot of discussion of high ticket offers. And I see a lot of coaches trying to sell, 3K and above packages. I think the industry is trending differently. There's saturation in the market, and our consumers are getting smart. We can look at data that tells us that the warm up period is increasing. We need to have more touch points. And so, what we need to do as practitioners is be smart about that. So, I am such a fan of what I call a small bite front end offer. So, this is like a taster. It's like when you taste a piece of the chocolate cake and you're like, I want that one, right? It was so good. I want more of that. And that's what I think really bridges that, for me, that's where our revenue trajectory just massively shifted was when I built out a way for people to taste what it's like to work with me in a very, reasonable price point, and they got a tremendous amount of value. It also solves a very specific problem. This is my framework builder lab. I'm doing one specific thing in there, and then it leads into a next tier offer. So that's my bias approach. I teach all my coaches how to do this. I see it work tremendously in different, niches for this, but 100%. There should be not just throwing spaghetti at the walls all the time.
Gosh. And your framework lab is very reasonably priced.
Yes. Yes, it
And
is.
I love and I literally was just having another conversation with another guest on my podcast about having that little taster that this is what it's like. I look at my own behavior, my own buying behavior, and the people that I've bought from that I've had the most success with are people that I took a little program from them so that I could see what their coaching style was like. So I could see what their teaching style, see what the videos were like, even, and then did say yes to a bigger price tag and
Yeah,
but
100%.
was very happy. And then I look at my own clients, people who have worked with me, they've done the exact same thing. Let me just pick Laurie-Ann's brain for like an hour or buy one of her little low cost programs and it's those little steps in becoming before they say yes to one-on-one coaching. So I see that
100%. Yeah.
changing in the
And
industry also.
there's a million ways to do it. For me personally, I don't focus on even having a freebie in my business anymore. Every way to qualify leads has some sort of price tag associated with it, even at the low point, which is just a $27 offer, which is our coaching session blueprint. But what I watch is this just amazing, ecosystem play out, and they move from that $27 offer to the mid-tier offer to the next, and it's all focused on framework, which equals results. And so they're getting results, so they know and have the competence and competence you to continue to get more results.
Okay, I really love that you just said you don't have a freebie. You don't have a free lead magnet. Get on my email list. It is literally like you need to buy something from me.
Yeah, and I say that with we do have a freebie. I don't focus on it. It sits out on the website. I actually use it as a bonus inside my webinars too. But it's not a focal point. Like I don't really we're not like, man, that's not working. I'm more like how are the organic and the paid advertisement going to our $27 offer looking? Because I know if somebody's buying, that is a highly qualified lead. And I'm okay with not making any money on the front end of that $27 offer. That's also what I want to say is it's an SLO, which means self-liquidating offer. The goal being that it's really about that person having such great results that they want the back end offers.
I love that. And it's also another example of you get to do it your way. Stop looking at everybody else and mimicking and copying them. Yeah.
1,000,000%.
Yeah. So what is the squirrel effect and why is it like I know that this is something that you talk about and why is it so relevant, please?
Yeah. I struggled with this myself, so I know it well as I speak to it. But in the beginning, I remember so clearly, Amy Porterfield is like my online business girl crush. Hopefully, your listeners know you should listen to Amy's podcast, Online Marketing Made Easy. First podcast I ever listened to, and she just brings the value so much. And so I signed up for a webinar of hers, and I remember I so excited, get on my computer, and I go to join, and it's like full, you can't get in. And I was like, what? It's like it's reached the 1,000-person limit.
Oh,
And unconsciously, what this did for me is it implanted this belief that that is success. Like I have to have 1,000 people and the doors have to close. And so what I found very soon is that that became my also comparison mark. So here I am just starting out business and my webinar, first one had like one person in it and they left midway through. The next one was like my mom and a handful of other people. But I was like, I suck. I'm not doing this right. I don't have 1,000 people. Like I was so just not even there yet from a business perspective. And so, what happens often is when we don't get that immediate gratification, or we tell ourselves the story, it's not working, I should already be there, this isn't happening fast enough, then we get in this cycle of abandoning the mission, the consistency. And then we go back to, I have this graph that I wish I could draw out for you right now. But what happens is we go back to the beginning. So then we're like, what should I try again? Oh, this time I'm going to do a challenge, or this time I'm going to try to speak on stages, or this time and then again, we go through that same process. It doesn't end up like we think it quote unquote should. And so it's this constant like squirrel temptations, like from the movie Up. It's like, squirrel, I'm like, oh, that shiny object. Like this person says webinars work. This person says stages work. Instead of just sitting back and saying, what what methodology or what way feels like it's most aligned for me. So for me personally, stages, my own stage, my webinar stage or going to speak on stages is where my wheelhouse is. So I consistently every single week, I've had hundreds of webinars. I host a webinar every Tuesday at 10 a.m. And I get to do it every week and assess what worked well, what didn't. Sometimes it goes like I want, sometimes it doesn't, but it doesn't mean I abandon the mission. And I think far too many coaches and business owners in general abandon before they're about to hit that point of like exponential growth. And so I would just encourage anybody like stay the course, pick something. Like our company motto in 2024, by the way, is same but better. Because I know about myself, I love to try new things. I'm a quick start. And so my OBM and my team, I'm like, hey, if I try to put a new offer, I made a promise, there's no new offers. So we've been having the same two offers for the last 2 years, and I've gotten so good at them. They're just like selling nonstop. If I would have squirreled all over the place, we would not be, nearly as profitable as we are. So that's what I mean.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And this kind of brings me back to, why I tell people like, we're going to write a signature speech and you're going to use it over and over and over again. What happens is you get really good at delivering that presentation again and again and again. Same thing with any stories that you're telling people. There is something about repeat, but I'm one of those people. I'm a quick start also, and
Yeah.
I love to change paths because it's just like, and in the human design world, I'm a manifesting generator,
Me
and
too.
yeah, so we love to try new things, and
Yeah.
let's go over here, and I have to just tell myself, nope, here's what I do.
And something that,
Stay here.
yeah, I love that. Something that really shifted for me too is reminding myself that my business should be boring and my life is where excitement is. And so I think a lot of times because we love entrepreneurship, we love the creation, we love to test things, is that it's very easy for business to suck us in and become the thing where we get our like endorphin kickback. And what I realized is like I was neglecting some of the things in my life and where that excitement could be. So I started asking myself the better question is, how do I make my business a bit more boring and redundant and reliable and consistent so it generates money while I'm sleeping? And then how do I pour into my life to build more excitement? And so I think often people have these two things flip-flopped.
I just had an aha moment with that little bit that you had. Back in college, I took a strong interest Campbell test, and so it was to guide you into career paths. Well, and I took it twice because, of course, I got to see if the results were the same, like a
Yeah, of
couple of years
course.
later. And one of the occupations that came up for me was the military, which as an entrepreneur, I would not do well in the military.
Yeah,
But
sure.
the reason why I came up with the military was because I like to do things in a methodical way.
Sure.
I feel comfortable with that. When I was in healthcare, I did exams in a very methodical way. And now I'm just hearing you say this, and this is why, like, it's like stay in your lane, because if I just stay methodical, it's all like it just works out for me.
Yeah. Again, the more consistently you can, speak your signature talk, you can do the webinar, the more quickly you make adjustments and the more you increase the ROI of giving that, talk. If I give my webinar once every 3 months, then one adjustment and getting the feedback is going to take time. If I do it every week, like I could literally make a change last week, implement it this week, and watch. Does it impact my conversions? Do we sign more clients because of it? And so there's so much beauty in consistency.
Yes, yes. All right. I also know that you talk about this thing called the land of the lost.
Yes,
Share with
yes.
my audience about this.
Yeah, this goes back to that squirrel conversation. So if you were to imagine time, right, and just going back to that input is when when we're working and we're looking and we're chugging along and it doesn't work, right? There is this gap that exists between expectation, what we think it should be looking like. I should be making six figures already because that's what people told me that you can do in year one. And there's this reality though. And if we were to graph these, we would see that often the crux of what's holding us back is this large gap between reality and our expectations. And so that is what I call the land of the lost, this gap that exists between those, because that is where we start to tell ourselves this inner dialogue of self sabotage should be further along. This isn't working. And in fact, that one's huge. So many people will tell me this isn't working. And I'm like, tell me why it's not working specifically. Well, only 5 people showed up. I'm like, hear your language. Only 5 people showed up sounds different than 5 people showed up. right? Tone matters and how we talk to ourselves, how we coach, obviously, too. And so that land of the lost is where we hover and we begin to ask the wrong questions of ourselves. And then we go back to that original start over place. And it's just, if we would have just stayed the course, it's like the gold miner that quits too early. Or if you've read Think and Grow Rich, where he talks about the family that would hit gold and then the line died out and the fault line died out, and so they walked away, sold all of their equipment, and then only to come find out that like it was 3 feet away and they missed it the whole time. And
Yes.
so I think that's often, where people get lost and they were like just so close.
Have you ever read the modern day parable to Think and Grow Rich, which is 3 feet from gold?
Oh, I haven't.
It's very entertaining. I brought it on a vacation and couldn't put it down.
Oh, that's so good. So I homeschool one of our kids and I select the reading. And so we just kicked it off. And so when he reads, I read with him. So we can discuss it. So he's reading Think and Grow Rich. So maybe I need to add that to the follow-up menu this year.
Very nice. So if you could go back in time, and start all over, and you get to like we're going back now with all of your knowledge and all of your experience, what would you do differently?
Yeah, this is an easy one for me. I made a lot of money, in the first 4 to 5 years in my business, but I made it because I had lots of offers. And while that isn't a bad thing, it was great. I mean, I just go back to teaching and remember like the thought of making $1 million wasn't even going to happen in my entire teaching career, let alone in a matter of a couple years. And so I felt like I was like, holy moly. But the problem with that is that you go wide instead of deep and
Mm,
you're exhausted trying to facilitate so many offers. It's messy on the back end of the business. And so if I were to go back, I really wished I would have held on to one signature offer, two signature offers. I would say that small bite offer and then a signature offer, and just focused on their growth and focused on optimizing that. And so the business model I have today is a result of that learning. I literally burnt it down. When I closed my health and fitness side, I said, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to focus on coaches only. Then I also want to be an example of what's possible because many coaches would love to be inside the business model that exists today. And so I also know is coming into a season of life where I have teenagers, a 14 and a 12-year-old, almost 13-year-old, and time is short with them, like before they go and they start pursuing their own dreams. And so I knew I wanted less and get more. And so I would 100% go back and dial in signature offers and really just stick to maximizing that because I think I would be having made a lot more money in an easier way by this time.
wonderful. Before we close, before I ask you my last question, and for you to share with everybody where they can find you,
Yeah.
is there any last piece of advice you would like to share with my audience?
I mean, there's just the thing that I love to say when this question gets asked of me is a mentor offered this to me early on, and I feel it's my obligation to share it with people is it's very, many of you might be transitioning out of a career. You're doing this thing on the side as you are building something, and that can feel very daunting. And so, when there's so many things you want to do, the reminder I always love to give is just like take one action step a day. Just do one thing a day. And sometimes that one thing could be many things, but it's just like send the one email, make the one post, have the one conversation. Some days you'll have room for 50 conversations. But that is compound. Like if you just stick with it and keep showing up, then you'll be able to look back and go, okay, I was consistent, even baby steps, and that has paid off dividends.
Oh, I love that. That's a great piece of advice. So what's an impactful book that you have had, that you've read?
Yeah, I'm such a geek for 10x is easier than 2x. It's a combo Dan Sullivan, Ben Hardy book read. I'm on my fifth listen of it, and I just love it for so many reasons. It's really met me where I'm at in the last couple years, but it's still one that I cannot seem to put down. And then I would say a spiritual book would be the book Soul Keeping, which is another
Mm,
one that I've read multiple times too.
I have not heard of that one,
So
but
good.
I have heard of the first one. Fantastic. Would you share with everybody where they can find you, follow you, because you are just absolutely brilliant?
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, at first, just love to connect with you on Instagram. I hang out there. It's me in the DMs for real. So if you have any questions or just want to chat, I'd love to meet you there. So my handle there is A Walk My Way. And if you're just interested in learning more about frameworks, I host a weekly workshop. As I mentioned, you can sign up there for free at amanda-walker.com/framework. And I host a podcast, Best Damn Coach. You can find me on any platform and listen away.
Yeah, definitely go listen to her podcast, and the link to her webinar will be down below. And you do that weekly, which I think is wonderful. That's just rinse and repeat, rinse and
Yeah,
repeat,
for sure.
doing the same thing over and over again. It's not sexy.
Not at all.
That's okay.
Yep.
Amanda, thank you so much for coming on to the Be in Demand show and sharing all of your brilliance with my audience. I know that they're all going to benefit from everything that we just talked about.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful to connect.
Thanks for hanging out with me. Be sure to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And join me over in my private Facebook group for more tips, community, and free trainings. You'll find the link in the show notes. You can also help this podcast reach more listeners by leaving a review. And as a thank you, each month I pick one of my reviewers to win a free coaching call with me. So if you haven't done so already, please leave a review and you could be the next winner.